She died mysteriously. Weeks later, her ghost whispered the truth to her mother and helped bring her killer to justice. In the winter of 1896, Greenbrier County was gripped by bitter cold and quiet rumors. Elva Zona Hester was a 23-year-old young woman, known simply as Zona. Sweet-spirited, cheerful, and known for her beauty, Zona shocked her small community when she quickly married a stranger who had only recently come into town. His name was Edward Stribling Trout Shoe, a tall, serious blacksmith who carried himself with confidence and mystery. Edward had a rough past. He told people very little, kept mostly to himself, and had moved to Greenbrier to start over. No one knew much about his previous life, and no one dared to ask. Zona's mother, Mary Jane Hester, didn't trust him from the start. She said there was something in his eyes she didn't like. Something too cold. Too hidden. But Zona insisted she was in love. The two were married quickly. Zona moved into Edward's cottage near the forge. Days turned into weeks. The snow thickened. And then one afternoon in January 1897, Edward sent a neighbor's son to the house to ask Zona something. The boy returned, pale and stammering. Zona was dead. She was found at the bottom of the stairs, her body oddly laid out, arms at her sides, eyes wide open, mouth frozen in a strange grimace. Edward cradled her body and sobbed uncontrollably. The doctor, summoned hours later, noted the odd positioning of her neck but declared the cause of death as everlasting faint, later changing it to childbirth complications, though no one had known Zona was pregnant. She was buried quickly. Too quickly. And the case was closed. But Mary Jane Hester never believed it. Something inside her screamed that her daughter had been taken. And she began to pray, not just for comfort, but for answers. She asked God. And then she asked Zona. Weeks passed. The snow began to melt, but Mary Jane felt colder than ever. Each night, she sat alone, clutching one of Zona's dresses, rocking back and forth by the fireplace. And then, one night, she appeared. At first, Mary Jane thought she was dreaming. Zona stood at the edge of her bed, wearing the same dress she had been buried in. Her skin glowed with a strange bluish hue, and her eyes burned, not with sadness, but with fury. "Mother," the ghost whispered. "He killed me." Mary Jane sat up, frozen. Zona came closer. "He was cruel to me. He had a temper. He broke my neck." She turned her head slowly. With a chilling crack, her neck twisted too far, hanging at a grotesque angle. Mary Jane gasped. For time she came, Mary Jane later testified. 4 nights in a row. She told me everything. How he attacked her, how he had raged at her, how he crushed her windpipe and snapped her neck. The ghost disappeared after the 4th night. But Mary Jane had her mission. She went straight to the local prosecutor and demanded her daughter's body be exhumed. At first, they laughed her off. Until they remembered Edward's strange behavior. How he insisted on dressing the corpse himself. How he wrapped a scarf tightly around Zona's neck, even after death. How he hovered and wailed when anyone came close to her head. And so they agreed. They would dig her up. On a cold March morning, under an overcast sky, Zona's coffin was lifted from the frozen earth and taken to the local schoolhouse for examination. The doctor took hours. He was methodical, patient, and thorough. And when he emerged, his face was pale. Zona's neck had been broken. Her windpipe was crushed. Her vertebrae dislocated. Bruising marked her throat. She had not died of natural causes. She had been murdered. The news spread like fire across the hills of West Virginia. Edward Trout Shoe was arrested immediately. And then the townsfolk learned even more. Edward had been married twice before. His first wife had divorced him for beating her. His second wife had mysteriously died under unknown circumstances. He had boasted to inmates that he wanted 7 wives. Zona had been wife number 3. In the trial that followed, Mary Jane Hester took the stand, and described her daughter's ghostly visitations in full detail. The courtroom was stunned. Some snickered. But others believed. After all, how else had Mary Jane known to demand an autopsy? How had she known about the broken neck? Edward sat silently, eyes dark and cold. He never confessed. But the jury found him guilty. Life in prison. He would never serve it. 2 years later, in 1900, he died suddenly behind bars. No one mourned him. After the trial, Mary Jane returned to her home, where she lived the rest of her life quietly, often seen walking alone near the cemetery where Zona was buried. She told anyone who would listen. "My daughter spoke to me. I did nothing more than bring her words into the daylight." Zona's grave still rests in Greenbrier County, under a simple stone marked with the words, "In memory of Zona Hester Shoe." The only case in which a ghost's testimony helped convict a murderer. And even now, more than a century later, people say if you walk near the cemetery at night, you can hear a voice whispering. A soft voice. A mother's voice. Telling her daughter, "I heard you." And somewhere, faint and far off, a young woman's voice replies, "Thank you."